Is Putin trying to remake a Soviet bloc? Is it a new Russian bloc that he's attempting to do?
Of course, he's trying to maintain a strong Russian influence, not only in his region, but in the Middle East, in Syria, and elsewhere. That's for sure. Russia is still a major power, without question. I don't think it's so much a Soviet bloc, but Russia does have very important interests in Ukraine's relations with the EU, and I think the EU has neglected that. This is a country that's in the middle, and it has to be treated accordingly. If the EU just pushes all the way, Ukraine, you're ours, they're going to end up with a huge price tag.
And that goes
also
to this idea of compromise that's necessary. Richard, as you see it through the Falkenrath prism, where will the compromise be in an ageless, centuries-old relationship between Europe and Russia?
We don't know yet, but I think if Ukraine is going to continue to exist as a unitary state, it will need some form of federalism that takes into account the different interests of the eastern side and the western side, and in particular, a new agreement on Crimea. I mean, Crimea is the base of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. It was part of Russia until 1954, when Nikita Khrushchev transferred it to the Ukrainian province of the Soviet Union, now Ukraine. And it is if there's one single flashpoint, it is the flashpoint.
I was going to say, if it's in the Crimea, we had two boats and two ships, the Mount Whitney, Adam, help me, the Mount Whitney and the Taylor.
Right.
We had, I think,
just
the
on
Black
the edge.
Sea. Do we put ships into the Black Sea or the Eastern Mediterranean with our Sixth Fleet as a signal to the Russians of the importance of a Ukrainian Crimea?
It turns out this is strictly limited by international convention. The Montreux Convention of 1963 governs the aggregate tonnage of warships non-Black Sea states can bring into the Black Sea. So those two warships were under the gross tonnage. An aircraft carrier would be over it. That is the basic deal that permits Turkey to maintain control over the straits. They had to say, okay, in the context of a larger dispute with Russia in the early part of the 20th century, Turkey can control the straits, but it can't let in non-Black Sea warships above a certain level.
Professor Sachs, you are a former advisor to the government of Russia back in the 90s, trying to help them grow their economy. How much of this is about the control of oil, the flow of oil from Russia through the Ukraine and onto Europe?
Well, I think, first of all, Ukraine is a sizable country, and it's a sizable part of Russia's trade. And so, again, Russia has interests in Ukraine. It was deemed essentially as part of Russia through most of modern history. And so Russia has strong connections, strong interests, not only in oil, not only in shipments of gas, but across the economy. Last year, when Ukraine was negotiating with the EU on accession, I think there was a lot of neglect. Actually, it wasn't that Russia was stopping the deal, but there was a lot of neglect about Russia's real interests in what otherwise could be massive trade diversion from Ukraine to Brussels or to the European Union.
Why has Russia been so silent, officially speaking, in a response to what's been going on in the Ukraine? I mean, there's been talk about a Western engineered coup, but we haven't heard.
It was amazing, Jeff, on Friday across the Bloomberg terminal to not see what was there. Which was
well, it's interesting. Some of the closest Western observers are saying Russia simply has not played its strong hand. The idea that Yanukovych was just a Russian puppet is not right. And so what is sometimes interpreted here as all Putin's manipulation is being denied by some of the closest Western observers, saying that this was just a Ukraine mess, where Russia was saying, my God, this guy's also completely unreliable.
That caught Russia by surprise.
He's not, yes, he's not delivering, and they didn't want this in the middle of the Olympics. That's for sure.
It was, by the way, it's a surveillance break exclusive. That circle in the Olympics that didn't work, that was Jeff Sachs' fault.